Welcome to another episode of Love Living Local 315. We are your hosts, Scott and Kelly Greats, and today we welcome local author and animator and creator Austin Green from Little Falls. He recently released a new children's book called The Huemon, Huemon, and it's really an impactful story around how we're always changing. Our moods are always changing. Our emotions are always changing. We're all different, and it's all okay because we're all humans. It's really a story about self-awareness and just understanding that we go through different moments during each day and different seasons of life. So deep, impactful, meaningful book, local author Austin Green. All right, pretty pumped to have a fellow author in studio. The kids' book is a whole new dynamic, though. Like, huge difference between writing for adults and writing for kids. This is your first children's book?
Yep. First,
All right.
first book in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what sparked it? What was the drive behind it?
Well, I guess I'll start with I went to college for filmmaking and TV video production. After I graduated, I moved down to the city, New York City, only for like a month because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
After I heard that they were probably going to shut the city down, I was like, I'm coming back home. I got to just do something up there. There were no jobs, and I just figured with at that time, with the pandemic, with the political stuff kind of going on at that time, racial, social kind of issues going on, I was like, all right, I feel like since I have all this free time, I want to make something that reminds everyone that we're all humans, reminds people of their shared humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first kind of idea that came to mind was a children's book. And it was about this green monk that comes across this blue person and this yellow person arguing. And he helps them find peace. And they both turn green, just like mixing blue and yellow paint, make green. And then I figured, well, what would the opposite of this green monk be? And it would be, according to like the primary color wheel, it'd be red.
Mm-hmm.
So the red one would be angry, combative. And then I figured if the green person has their opposite, the red, so should the blue, so should the yellow. And then it expanded into like associating personalities and emotions and feelings with each state of what's now called the human. And that's spelled Huemon, color hue. So that was the beginning of this whole project. And it just expanded into this whole, I'm working on now an animated series for it. And I worked on like world building and lore for years, like a magic system, because I'm a huge fantasy nerd. I love Lord of the Rings and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And finally, after years of like toiling away at the show, I decided to circle back and finally actually put the children's book out, just so it could sort of act as like an introduction to the show once it's finally out. Mm-hmm. And now that the book's out, I'm like fully dedicating my time to working on the show.
That is so exciting, too, because as a teacher, previous teacher, teachers love for students to read a book and then compare it to what they're seeing in the show, compare and contrast. We do that all the time. A lot of times before we'll watch a movie, we'll discuss the book. What was the process like writing the book? Are you self-published?
I did go the self-publishing route for now, yep. Actually writing it because, again, I had done most of the writing for the show, like actual scripts. And a little side note, I would like the show to be a little bit more mature, because I would like this children's book, like I said, to be an introduction to the whole idea, the theme that we're all humans. But I wanted to dip a bit more into the maturity of the real world and real life humans. I do have an idea for a kid's show as well, but that's the idea. But most of the writing took place in episode scripts, and that really helped me basically hone in on what the message is. And then that helped me circle back to just the bare bones messaging for the book itself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What age group, let's talk book first, then show in the works, but what age group is the book ideal for?
it could be toddlers to teenagers.
Okay.
Definitely, yeah, and definitely adults too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's catered towards the younger crowd.
Okay.
For sure.
For
And
sure. And even at like the kindergarten level, to
Mm-hmm.
read it and stop and discuss.
Right.
You know, I mean, a 5-year-old probably wouldn't be able to read the book, but to have a teacher read the book and then have so many of those important teaching points with character education and everything that the schools are so focused on right now.
Right. It's
is
all
huge.
about character.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just sort of explain the way these humans work too, because like you asked a good question before we started. These humans, they're not stuck in one color. They can change based on their emotions and their personalities. So let's say, for example, green men, they're peaceful, they're gentle, they're tender. They don't like to fight. But if they lose their temper and they get pissed off, they will, what I call, flip into what their opposite is, which is a redman, which is angry and aggressive. And that's how these humans work. They can also blush into their adjacent colors. So again, I'll go with the green man route. Peaceful, gentle, tender, sort of upbeat, but not as much as, say, a yellowman. They're energetic, ecstatic, a little bit scatterbrained. So they'll blush if they start to feel a bit more of that. So no human in this book and in the show is going to be stuck as one. I wanted to focus a lot more on just the whole wheel of emotions and personalities that we also have, and just to show that you have these different parts of you and these different personalities within all of us. And even though we have maybe a natural personality, that can change, and it can change in the course of a day, or it can change in years. And a lot of different things affect us too. And it's all about, a big theme of the show is balance and harmony, balancing these opposites and finding that inner harmony. And then that just helps you, it seems to help you find harmony with other people and just life.
My brain's going 1,000 miles an hour here.
So is mine, because
I don't know where to start, but I will start with the funny thing. Kid from the 80s growing up with the Incredible Hulk. It's funny to hear green people are peaceful.
Yeah.
I remember Lou Ferrigno turning green when he got angry. Talk to me about the character development. So they each have a name that's not associated with the color, or is it?
So in terms of the name, you mean
Like a character name?
Well, in the book, there's only one actual name. The main character's Turtle, and he's green. So
Okay.
it's kind of funny. But in the show, there's definitely names. It's not so much their character name is associated with a certain color or personality type. It's just there is a bit of like cultural lore in the show, because again, I really wanted to expand these different, what I call them, color cultures, because in the show, I'll give a little tidbit on it. Where the show takes place, the humans have lived in these separate color cultures. They've forgotten their shared human heritage. So there's the Yellowman culture, there's the Bloomin' culture. The Bloomin' prioritize just chilling out all the time and relaxing, because the Bloomin' are calm and sort of oblivious, sort of lazy. The Yellowman, like I said, they're energetic, they're ecstatic, so they're very like innovative. But again, they're scatterbrained, so like their society is partially collapsing because they just can't focus on one thing at one time. So in the show, there's these separate cultures, and they have forgotten, like I said, their shared heritage. They've forgotten that they're all humans. They call themselves only Yellowman, only Bloomin', only Redman, whatever. And then there's this kind of following in line with the book. There's this one Greenman who goes out and realizes that what he is a human, and so is everyone else.
Okay.
And he reconciles his opposite as a Redman and other parts of him and parts of other people. And then just,
In real life, this would be so useful for anybody. But as far as kids go, even like knowing when someone is upset, to be able to recognize that they're red, you would handle that person in a different way. And it really is unfortunate that as people, we see things through our own lens or the day that we're having. And sometimes you don't realize that kids in particularly are going through so much because in school you don't have the privy to see what their home life is like, to realize that maybe they didn't get enough sleep last night. And their whole dynamic changes on it. And as adults, we sometimes forget what someone else may be going through.
Yeah.
So this concept is just amazing, because you would interact with people differently
Definitely.
if you knew how they were feeling.
Yeah, because I mean, in real life too, people serve as a mirror for each other.
Yes.
And if you see someone like in that world, see someone being a Redman, they're freaking out. There's a good chance you'll kind of match that energy and
Mm-hmm.
become that too. But if you have that sort of wisdom or just that grace or however you want to put it, remembering that they also have the potential to be
Right.
calm and they have the potential to be happy again. Or Violet Men, or another one, they're depressed. They're sort of like contemplative, laser focused, but they're down. And so if someone's depressed, you can, and you remember that they have potential for otherwise you don't, because people try to change other people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, if there's a bit of a force behind that, it's not really that beneficial for them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you remember that they're a whole human, they can work through whatever state they're in right now and find themselves back to being happy or just calm or peaceful or whatever.
And to be that
and to
person
be
that could
person.
help them
Yeah.
change their mood. That's
Exactly.
it's awesome.
So primarily about awareness, right?
Yeah.
More so than lessons. You're not trying to
Right.
teach a lesson here. You're trying to
No,
create
yeah.
awareness that
Of what we are, like not like what we could be, like a kind of spoiling it. In the book, the main character, Charlie, he's a Greenman. He thinks being peaceful and always gentle is the way to be.
Right.
And that there's nothing wrong with being peaceful or gentle, but there's times for all these other states of being. And so that, like you were saying, that's how you kind of realize the best way to actually help someone is to remember that you're a whole person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, the what I'm hearing, the theme is it's where you are. It's not who you are.
Yeah.
And so often we do this all the time as adults. We're like, oh, that person's this or this person's that or that, and we just paint with this brush and we just put them in that box, and it's not fair. So yeah, to your point, there's lessons for adults as well in there.
You just remember that you could easily act the way they are, or even better, you realize that you have probably acted like,
Sure.
say, someone that's angry in the past.
So let's talk a little bit about your personal journey.
Sure.
You were diagnosed with colon cancer during this creative process.
Yeah.
How did that experience shape your perspective in your work?
Yeah. So again, I'll kind of go back after or when COVID hit, and I was back home, just working on. It started with online film competitions, and I made this like in the early days of COVID, back when like wearing a mask seemed like at the very least what's the word? Compassionate kind of works, but like just a cordial thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Going about. There was a mask awareness competition, like making a commercial for it for the New York State, and I made one. It was like me walking on a trail with these giant floating coronaviruses coming towards me, and I hold my hand up in the sky, and like Thor's hammer, I catch a mask with lightning and kick it away. That garnered a lot of attention locally. That's when I met local journalist Dave Warner, did some work with him, and then I ended up meeting who would become the boss of a production company. I worked out in Syracuse. But for a year between that, it was radio silence. They weren't ready out in Syracuse, and there were no other jobs. So that's when I actually started writing. I first came up with the idea of the book, and then I was like, oh no, this is going to be a show. So for a year straight, I started working on this. In January 2021, I got COVID, and that was before like any real like vax or anything like that came around. So I got the initial first fun disease, and it hit me like a train. I got wicked brain fog, and I got like digestive issues and things like that. And after that, the bulk of it passed. The digestive issues and the brain fog really remained. And this was like sort of my Violet Men stage, because it was just utter depression. I couldn't like form sentences in speech or like literally in my head. Like I had trouble thinking. And as someone working on an animated show, this was the real kicker. I kind of lost the ability to like imagine, just because of that brain fog. And it was really weird and daunting. And I hit a very low point, but at some point I like a flip switch, and I was like, I'm going to get through this somehow. Even though I can't write right now, I can't draw, I can't do anything for this project that's basically fueled me for the past year being out of work. So at that time I got into psychology, and like specifically like personality psychology, which lends itself really well to this stuff. And that was more on like the mental side, like the psychology, trying to figure out all that for not just myself, but people in general. I got very interested in mythology because storytelling, like we've been doing that for humans for who knows how long, maybe millions of years. And I also got into Tai Chi and like meditation a little bit more. I grew up doing karate, Tong Sudo, shout out, for 10 years, over 10 years. I'm a second degree black belt. I haven't practiced it in years, but it's still the muscle memory. It's in there. So I was a little bit aware of like energy work, if you want to call it that, or meditation, things like that. But I really got into it for the purpose of getting myself out of this funk. So I was doing all of that. I was learning about all the, different, both major and minor religions of the world and of humanity, and like reading about all of their different mythological tales and seeing these parallels between all of them, even if they're completely separate cultures in history. They all have like these parallels that point to the fact that we're all humans, that we have this shared knowledge or wisdom or whatever you want to call it. And then that's when like the themes of definitely this project really started clicking. At some point, probably like a half a year to a year after I got COVID, that's when I really wanted to like get the digestive issues looked at. It was starting to feel honestly a little better doing those practices and like all the studying.
Mind over matter.
Yeah, definitely. And I got a colonoscopy at like 22, I think. And then they said, okay, we found cancerous polyps in there. We want to put you on some meds or get you on chemo or something. I was like, just where I was at that time. I was like, I'm going to try and approach this holistically or however you want to call it. And no judgment to anyone that goes a different route. Everyone's different. But for me, that just felt like the right thing to do just because of everything I was learning at that time in terms of, like you said, mind with body or however you want to put it. So I kept doing all of these practices, even though I really couldn't keep working on this. It was a rock for me for the recovery because I knew it was calling to me in some way. I wanted to make this. And a year after that first colonoscopy, after doing all the Tai Chi and learning about, to broadly put it, human symbolism, and kind of seeing those parallels in my life and in my journey actually healing, I got the second colonoscopy and they said it was the cleanest colon they'd ever seen. I was like, all right, there's something to it. Cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so then after that, I was really able to dive back into both the show, and I started working on a lot of concept art. And then later on, within, I think just last year, at the beginning of last year, I decided, all right, it's time to circle back to the kids' book.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a wildly inspiring and courageous story.
Thank you.
Appreciate you sharing. Where's this going in your mind? You're obviously do a lot of mental work, and I'm sure you do a lot of vision boarding and futuristic thinking. What's perfect world scenario for you with this?
The book blows up, figuratively, and somehow the scripts and the concept art get seen by someone that can make the animation show a possibility. I have planned for this first one. Like I said, I have a children's show that I think is going to serve as a nice sequel to the first show, like just following like the kids of the main characters. I could see it working out really well, and in the show, it's wartime. There's conflict between these, like I said, these different color cultures because of their differences and the fact that they forgot that they're all humans. I would like the kid show to be set in a world with a bit more peace, so it lends itself better to a kid show. I do also have prequel shows of like more like primitive or ancient humans, following like how they evolve and what led them to the point to where their collapse or their fall, and they forgot that they were all one big family, basically. So there's a lot of, it's definitely like franchise level thinking about this stuff. I'm a video gamer. I'm a big gamer. I'll definitely lends itself well to one of those too. So definitely, yeah. There's a lot of projects in mind for it, but right now I'm just happy talking about this because it's finally done.
So a main theme in this book is definitely empathy, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So how can we take what's going on in the book and implement it here in our community? Because I think it's so important that we discuss how this can affect our everyday life here.
Yeah. I mean, like physically, I definitely, like we were talking about earlier, going to schools, elementary schools or whatever,
sure.
or even high schools, I don't mind. And talking about the book, sharing the themes and the story behind it. But in terms of more like day-to-day individuals, like if there's a message, like you were saying, empathy behind it, it's that everyone thinks that they're someone. They think that they're a certain personality. They think there's certain standards they're supposed to be held to. And definitely nothing wrong with having a goal, having an aim, and like being proud of who you are. But it's important to remember all of these other sides of you. Even so, a theme that I really dove into when I was studying like psychology and seeing this parallel in like mythology and like ancient human religions and cultures, that in psychology there's this famous guy, Carl Jung, and he popularized the idea of shadow work, or integrating your shadow. And just very briefly, the whole idea is that there's parts of your personality that you suppress, that you fight, that you shove away, that you don't associate yourself with. But those parts of you have something to offer that actually can support you. Pretty basic example that I personally identify with, which probably a lot of men do, but in general, people, anger issues. Anger is a state of being that everyone has, men and women and everyone in between. But the state of anger also has strength and power and passion even. And if you just shove down your anger and you don't look at it and integrate it, then you're losing out on that whole quality of what it means to be human. Same thing with, I'll kind of go through like the color wheel. The more negative states of humans, or at least on the surface it looks like, orange men, they're anxious, they're scared, they're terrified, but they're also aware, like you were talking about earlier, awareness. They're cautious, and there's a place and a time for that. But nowadays, so many people are suffering with anxiety.
Yep.
And in my experience, it seems like it's because people aren't really looking at their beliefs, what makes them feel anxious, whatever could contribute, generational trauma or karma, however you want to put it. But even that has something to offer, this anxiety. It's awareness. So you bring awareness to what is making you afraid, and then you're integrating that state. You could literally get the shakes out because you're no longer just viewing that feeling as I'm in trouble, I'm in danger. Like you can actually find safety in that awareness. And then just lastly, the violent men, they're, like I said, they're depressed, but there's a certain quality of stillness that you can find in that. And for me, like going back to like the cancer and all that, I definitely hit the lowest point that I had ever felt, a depression. But I also recognize that stillness, and like that lends itself really well to like things like meditation and things like that. So there's definitely aspects of your personality, of being a human, that might seem like problematic on the surface, but if you just explore it and open up a bit, you'll find that those parts of you are worth loving too and exploring.
I think it's so awesome. This should totally be focused towards kids, because kids feel okay with expressing themselves exactly the way they feel at those young ages. They come in, if they're upset, they're going to cry. If they're angry,
kids and 80-year-olds.
they're going to let you know.
It's full circle.
It is a full circle thing. Whereas as adults, or even like, and I'll get to middle school kids too, because this would be amazing for middle school kids, because their moods change.
Oh yeah.
Because of hormones, because of things that they can't even control. Yeah. So I think it's so awesome that because as adults, I feel like we try to hide our feelings and just go through life at that constant, whatever color that we're going to be, or mood that we should be in. And we don't realize that it's okay to feel differently. And I think another great thing for where this should go is even in schools to have a safe place to go where you can express the color that you're feeling at that time. Because a lot of times it's not looked at as okay for you to be upset, for you to be sad, for you to be
a standard.
Right. They need a safe
expectation.
Exactly. Like it's so awesome in so many ways.
More than anything.
Not that there was a question in there. I just think it's great.
No, that's fine. I like your passion.
Yeah.
What color was she there, Austin?
Yellow.
She was yellow. There.
Excited.
It's my favorite color.
That is her color. Yeah, it's all coming together now. I'm green.
You're
until I'm red.
yeah.
Uh,
He flips from one to the other. No.
Hey, that's how it happens.
but no, all kidding aside, I think it's awesome that people are having the conversation, or this will spark
Exactly.
a conversation
Sure.
because, one thing that I've learned later in life, and I've often said that adults are just deteriorated teenagers, right? I mean, we kind of, there's a saying that a lot of people live to be about 20, but we wait 60 more years before we bury them. And it's sad but true. Like people just kind of sometimes graduate high school or get to those formidable years, and that's just who they are forever because they suppress these things and they don't talk about it, or they feel shame or embarrassed or whatever. But ignoring it doesn't change the fact that it's there.
Yeah.
And to your point, we all have these colors, and so the
But
conversation
we all have that
is
underlying
so
thing in
important.
common, that we're all humans. Like
Right.
at the bottom part of it, we're all the same.
Right at the source. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing, this is a great parenting tool too.
Yeah.
Like to be able for parents to read this and then be able to realize, like, all right, my kid right now is going through something. How do I support them? How do I become like Turtle and get them back to, or
just
get them to
acknowledging
change
like
their
you
color.
are this color right
Right.
now. Let's talk about
And
it.
what can I do to help support you to make you not feel this way?
And it's
or
the right now part is, I
Right.
think, kind of the most important is like, they're a human. So am I.
yes,
I'm going to be a bit more aware of that fact, and then I won't react if my toddler is freaking out and having a temper tantrum. I'm not going to match that if I am
Right.
not aware of it. It couldn't be. It doesn't usually help if you freak out like that.
Yeah,
But-
and to me, the most impactful teaching is live time. It's at the moment when it's happening, right? I mean, you think about from a sports standpoint, when a certain play happens, like the coach needs to talk about it right now. Like, let's correct it now. Let's not wait until Monday's film session to figure out how to fix this. So again, just a lot of conversations. All right, let's talk about the business side of this real quick, and then we'll wrap it up because we're already at half an hour. There's almost no money in books, right? They're in our industry, right, where they're known to be a very expensive business card, and obviously this. We've talked about this. It's kind of a starting point. It's on your resume. It's and hopefully it blows up, right? Because then there's money if it blows up. But you also illustrated it.
Yes.
And the illustrations are amazing. They look
you.
so good, and the colors are vibrant. It's great. You do the animation and the production side of the online.
Yeah, right now it's just the concept art. I haven't actually made any animations.
But it will be just you.
Well, yeah, I mean, the definite plan is to get something made to serve as a pitch, that people can use, and definitely I'm going to need a whole, studio eventually of people, of animators, professional or otherwise animators.
So talk about that aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
The grind and the amount of faith required to keep going, even though you're putting in all this. This is your dream. It's your vision. It's your passion, and you're putting all this work into it. But you're just losing money. You're not making money, right? So what keeps you going? How do you work through that?
I mean, to use a solid business term, it's an investment.
Yeah.
But I want to make money on it. That's great, but it's more than that to me. It might seem cliche, but it literally, like I said, served as a rock for me surviving, whatever disease or issues or stuff I had in the past. It helps me with my own personal relationships and outlook on life. And if it can do the same thing for others, then, I mean, it's been 5 years already since the beginning of this project. And I finally just have the first, viable or physical thing to show for it. Yeah. But I'm fine with that. It means a lot more to me than just like, I hope I sell 1 million copies. That'd be cool. But there's a lot more to it for me than that.
I feel like I knew that answer was coming.
Yeah.
Knowing Austin for 30 minutes now.
Well, that's truly like help others. Like that's what you want to do.
Yeah,
You
no,
wanna
listen,
see that.
You get what you give. And,
Yeah.
No doubt. And we talk about this a lot, in the business world, that the money always follows the work, right?
Sure.
So when you're putting out a good product that's helping others, serving others, the money follows.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
you want to wrap it up?
We doing the
Well, let's start with how to connect.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
So what's the best way to connect with you, Austin, and,
Sure.
and the best place to purchase the book or multiple books?
Sure. So the book is available on Amazon, and I think other sites. I just don't know all of them. I went through Amazon KDP for the paperback version. Going to work on a hardcover eventually too, probably through the same people or the same company. But you can find it on Amazon. The Human Huemon by Austin Green. People can contact me right now. I'm just using austinroygreen.com or at iCloud.com. That's AustinRoygreen. No E at the end of green. That's just like the color.
Just like the color.
Hilarious, right? So you can contact me through that. And I also have a website that details a bit more about my plans for the shows. Same title, thehuman.com. Simple as that.
And we spoke briefly before we started the interview that Austin would definitely be willing to come in and be a guest reader to,
Sure.
in classrooms, because as teachers, a lot of times we like to sit back and enjoy a book and not be the reader of the book. And then the kids, I mean, the questions that you'll get will be, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Half of the time they're not a question. We did that a lot though this episode too. We just said things and they weren't actually questions. Like, yeah.
It's my
But-
favorite part of going to elementary schools is the questions.
And
creative.
sometimes they're not
You
questions.
spend all this
like-
time like thinking, preparing, like
Yeah.
you're on
Yeah.
a really deep level, as you know, with this stuff, right? And the first question you're gonna get is like, what kind of car do you drive?
Yeah.
RAV4. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I went to my grandma's house yesterday
Yeah,
and
I
this
had
happened.
pizza
And I'm like,
last
well,
night.
what's the question? There is no question.
Cool,
but
dude.
it will definitely spark meaningful
Yeah.
conversations
For sure.
for kids to have and teachers to have with students. And like I said, middle school is just, I think it's a great target. Like I know the book itself is, but at times we forget that they're still kids.
Mhm.
I feel like we're trying to get kids to grow up way too fast. Like I was talking about this with another teacher that the kindergartners become like the new second or third grade. We are so focused on academics and things like that that we're losing sight of how to teach kids
Right.
how to just
Social,
be
emotional,
human.
especially in
How
this
to be
digital world.
human and how
We're
to-
teaching them on iPads. Half
That's
the
what I'm
time.
saying.
You know?
It comes down
iPad
to
babies.
be a
So
good
it's-
human and how can you be a good human to others.
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
goes right back to that. And it's just
The plan,
Awesome.
like I said, I do have potentially one speech or however you want to call it, presentation with
yeah.
my mom's school in Rome. And an activity, a workout that I want to do with the kids is have everyone make a face that represents every color and look around and see how everyone
yes,
can express in every single way and be like, that's what being a human is.
it
So
is.
We're all that.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. We wrap all these up with our rapid fire 5. They're designed to be quick and easy, fun, funny.
Whoa.
Jay gives me heat, man. Our producer over there. Sometimes I get too deep. I feel like I should go deeper with these questions. Yeah, but I probably now I'm gonna ask. Now I'm gonna ask him what his car is. You know?
Don't ask him what his favorite
color
food
his
is.
car is.
No favorite color. Sorry, no favorite color.
All right, what's your go-to creative ritual or habit?
If I want to feel inspired, like I said, I'm a big gamer. And I think video games are like sort of the highest form of entertainment media, but also just like art. Like whether it's a game with great stories or a beautiful world, that is inspiring to me.
Well, this kind of goes along with it, like playing video games and stuff. If you could master one new skill, what would it be? And it could be something crazy.
Telepathy. No.
That would
new
be. I think
skill.
that would be terrible to know what people are thinking all the time. I would not want to know that.
New skill. I've always wanted to master an instrument. That's one field of art that I have not really tapped. I kind of like that partially because it leaves a little bit of magic in how it all works. But I have a guitar. I know 2 chords, so I'd like to get one of those.
What color human are you today, and why?
Before this, a little orange, because again, like this is my only second podcast. So I was like, get the shakes out. You're good. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But since I've been here, solid blue, green, chilling out,
Awesome.
relaxing.
I like it. I mean, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
We can change.
Best piece of advice you've ever received.
Everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people seem to be acting from this place that they're not enough or they're not loved or they're not worthy. But when you flip that and say, I am, and then you act from that place and you create from that place of love or worthiness, your life changes. So explore that. Don't be afraid. It might be scary at first, but go for it.
It's great advice, and there's such power in words and language, and we work on this a lot as adults, I am statements.
Positive self-talk for sure.
Yeah, I laugh. It's not funny, but I laugh because my kids.
It's pretty
We have
hilarious,
3
though.
children,
Yeah.
and now they catch themselves though.
They definitely do,
good. You know,
because we are
because I just pound into them. Like when we're doing anything, and they give me something negative about they can't do something or they stink at something,
or before a game or whatever.
they'll stop and look at me like, I know, Dad, I shouldn't talk that way. I'm like, oh.
You can just laugh at yourself.
All right, I'm gonna test your creative juices here. Describe the Huemon book in 3 words.
Harmony, personality, and colorful.
Yeah,
All right.
I like it.
I'm gonna full disclosure here. I prepped as much as I prepped for these, and I went to the website and I scrolled through all your stuff. I didn't realize hue was the color,
Yeah.
HUE.
Yep.
I mean, I saw the different spelling, but I didn't pick up on the fact that it was a play on the colors.
Right.
No, I learned something.
Good job. Good job, honey.
The Huemon, HUEMON. It's on Amazon, and he is Austin Green, hailing from Little Falls, right here
Yes,
at
sir.
the 315. And we're psyched to have you back in the community, and hopefully can get you in front of a whole bunch of kids here and coast to coast.
Thank you so much,
Thank
guys.
you.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you.